How's it going, everyone? Today we're going to be covering a very high yield freestanding MCAT question. So pause the video, try it on your own, and let's go through it. Insulin, a peptide hormone, can be injected intravenously, meaning in the vein, to rapidly lower blood glucose or blood sugar. Insulin also stimulates the sodium-potassium ATPase pump on cellular membranes. And ATPase is going to be using the hydrolysis of those high energy bonds in the phosphate groups to provide energy to drive a cellular process on cellular membranes. Which of the following would be an expected result of administration of intravenous insulin in a patient with severe hyperglycemia? So we have to ask ourselves, if insulin, which is a peptide hormone, a fancy name for a protein, is going to bind to some extracellular receptor on a cell and then also indirectly stimulate the sodium-potassium pump, what is going to happen? So we're upregulating the sodium-potassium pump. And the prerequisite knowledge that MCAT is going to want us to know is that 3 sodium are going to be pumped out, 3 sodium ions, and 2 potassium ions are going to be pumped in for every 1 ATP that we're hydrolyzing here. Now, if we're upregulating this process, what does that mean? Things in the extracellular space are going to have a little bit more sodium, and things on the extracellular space will actually have less potassium. And what are we measuring in the blood, which is out here? That's part of the extracellular space. So we're going to actually have reduced potassium levels. We actually won't really have too much of a change in sodium because sodium is more of a reflection of how much water our body has rather than the sodium itself. But this question doesn't really test us too much on that. So let's go through the answers. So A, decrease serum sodium concentration. As I just mentioned, the sodium-potassium pump doesn't have a lot to do with the actual serum sodium that we measure, but if it did, if anything, it would increase our serum sodium, okay, which it's not doing. It's not an answer choice in this question. Decrease serum potassium concentration. That sounds pretty good. Serum is a part of the blood that doesn't contain cells or clotting factors and that we're measuring in the lab. And that's going to be reduced here because where is it going? It's going inside the cell. So B looks like our best answer and is our correct answer. D is actually the opposite. This person, maybe they had severe hyperglycemia from something called diabetic ketoacidosis, which is something that happens in patients typically with type 1 diabetes, although it can occur in other type of diabetes, where they don't have enough insulin. And that lack of insulin can often result in hyperkalemia, although it doesn't always have to. D, decrease serum chloride. We're not dealing with chloride as much in this problem, so that's a little bit more of a red herring. And E, increase blood glucose. Insulin, of course, does the opposite. It's going to mobilize those GLUT4 receptors and actually allow glucose to enter skeletal muscle and fat cells in order to lower the blood glucose.